presentation, the parks presentation, you know, yeah, do those once, but the stuff that's in the smaller venues, the smaller ticket items like these, yeah, have them run 2 or 3 times, and what they're doing is with these.
Actually, go back. Oops, I'm not supposed to show that one. I told you I'm not here.
You're not over yet.
It was pretty pathetic. They said, okay, where's the bar set? I said, well, there really is no bar. They had taken, well, the bar was literally a bar. They had taken an old casino and bar and turned it into kids' clubs. And put some plastic little tykes furniture in there. And so I said, we're not going to have to try very hard. But we did. We tried really hard. And the result was really defining what the family cruise experience was about. And that meant thinking about what are the things that we, Disney, can bring to this experience that's going to differentiate it and make it Disney. And that's what we'll be talking about today. So the first thing, making it Disney. So, believe it or not, these are real sketches from our early, this was like Magic Wonder time. This is what Imagineers do when we get a chance to really brainstorm.
Yes.
And have some fun with blue sky. We wanted it to be Disney. But actually it was Michael Eisner, who I have tons and tons of respect for Michael. And he was a man of great taste and insight. And he said, the thing that set us apart is quality, of course, but elegance, beauty and elegance of these ships. So he actually directed us to think about the classic sailing ships, those romantic, beautiful ships like the Queen Mary. I'm not supposed to say this, and like the Titanic. But true. But those ships really define that romantic view of sailing across the Atlantic, people dressed in suits and dresses, and we're storytellers. You guys, I'm sure, have been to many Imagineering discussions now. We always talk about story. We are storytellers. And so our ship, and we tell stories in a bunch of different ways, with characters, with interiors, and our stories sometimes are blatant, have a beginning, middle, and end. Other times stories are subtext. They just create the underpinning for our design understanding. In the case of this, in the case of our ships here, the story was told by the beauty and the elegance of the design. A lot of time, form follows function. You build something, and the design is there to service the function of what it does. But we often spend money on things just to make it look beautiful. For example, the bow of these ships, the bow, for those of you who are not familiar with nautical terms, is the front. Right, Bob?
Yes, the bow's back.
And so that bow of the ship, we spent millions on to extend it just so the profile of the ship would look like an elegant sailing yacht, which it does. And there you go, there's a better view. That's the Magic, right? Is that the Magic? Wonder. That's a Wonder. See, I'll let these guys out there do it.
Wonder.
Actually, I was just on the Wonder in Alaska. Fantastic. If you've never been to Alaska, oh my gosh. One of the perks of my job, I get to go sample our product, and that was pretty cool. And there is the magnificent Dream. Wow, she's a beauty, isn't she? Look at that. With the great aqueduct on the top. Anyway, I'm rambling on. Let's get into the meat of things. Bob, what's that?
That's you. I think we're into our winter vacation photos here. What's really fascinating, this ship was built at the Meyerwerth shipyard, which is in Papenburg, Germany. And it's about 2 hours north of Dusseldorf. And what's fascinating about how they assemble these ships, Joe talked about the design, is they actually assemble these ships almost like a giant Lego toy. They pre-build sections of the ships in blocks, and then they start assembling these blocks and welding them together. And so Joe is there, I think that's a picture of you next to the hull there.
That was next to the hull.
And then you can see they build it, and it's inside a giant hangar. Because it's northern Germany, you have weather that you have to deal with, and so they build the ship inside. And the first time I walked in the building, I don't know, Joe, what you felt, but the first time I walked in the building, I felt like I was walking into that final scene of Indiana Jones, where you're just looking through this endless hangar corridor there, because you're just not used to seeing a ship inside a building, and especially a ship this large. And so you can see here how they're assembling these in pieces. And then what they do is they fill it with water, and they do all the testing, and then they literally float the ship out onto the Ems River. And this is the shot of the Dream before it gets its final paint. But again, they assemble dry, and then they fill it with water and do all their testing and everything. And so you can get a sense there of just how large this building is. The pictures don't do it justice. It's just really, really, really amazing.
In fact, Bob would like to mention, they build 3 ships at a time inside this building.
Yeah.
There's 2 queued up bow to aft, and then there's a third one off to the side. And then there's also the bits and pieces of our ship and the other ship that's adjacent to ours that are being unloaded with an 800,000-ton crane overhead that's able to lift things like the entire smokestack onto the ship. It's really, for myself and for Bob, who've spent, most of our careers doing theme park stuff, this has been really cool and interesting to do something that's so different. All the same kind of thinking that we use to create the parks in terms of, understanding and being sensitive to the total guest experience, understanding how our design cues how people think about the experience. That all underpins what we do, but the way it's done here, relative to like what I just saw in Hong Kong, where we're pouring cement and digging dirt, it's very, 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 very different and very stimulating.
It's different for us as designers because I think we'll get into it later in the presentation. Our background is theme parks, and so we're used to getting guests for a certain 20 minutes, an hour, as you go through a queue line, go through an attraction. For a cruise ship, you're designing for an experience where guests could spend 3, 4, 5, 7 days with you. And so it forces us as designers to think a lot deeper in terms of some of those experiences. We're going to talk a little bit about Enchanted Art a little bit later, because there's just a lot of repeatability, and you just have guests that are living with us. And so for the kids' areas and everything like that, it forces us to think really, really different than what we're used to in theme parks. And I think for us, it's really challenging and stimulating because it's something different for us, and it's really, really a lot of fun. But here, as you can get a sense of the building here, because I think this is taken from up across the forward stack, just how tall this building is again. You can see how they vent some of the air out through the funnel there.
So, hold on, Bob. The next picture will tell, take note of this picture. The next picture will really help you understand the advantage of why we build things inside.
So, what we did was, we finished in Papenburg, we took the ship out for sea trials, and then we ended up in Bremerhaven, which is north of Hamburg, where we did our final fit out. And I tell you, this looks like white fluffy snow, but it was actually frozen ice, and Joe was freezing. I was freezing taking that picture of him. It looks like you're in the middle of the North Pole because you can't see anything because it's gray. But it's, it was quite a challenge going outside and finishing up work just because of the weather, and I think that's why in Papenburg they built the ships inside. But again, it was something new for us to have to deal with the weather and the elements.
Yeah, so it's not all...
It was cold. I think you fell once, right?
I did, yeah. The California boy was not.
We're not used to this.
There's the sunshine.
It's like 15 degrees and it's windy, and we're going, what are we doing here?
We don't build things in places that are happy and friendly. I just come from Hong Kong. It was like 1,000 degrees with equal amount of humidity. And that was actually going through my mind. So I'm looking at this and God, why can't we build something in a very nice climate? Although Anaheim's wonderful, but I don't work on Disneyland projects. So.
I think the next one's yours there, Joe.
Oh, is it? Okay. Thank you, Bob.
See where you're
okay. So let's talk. We're on the Dream. So we're going to talk a little bit about the design of the Dream. Show of hands, how many people have been on the Dream? Oh, not enough hands. Get on the Dream. Go book downstairs if they have a booking available. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the design of the Dream, and then we're going to give you a sneak preview of what's going on with the fantasy. But going back to something I mentioned a little earlier about the total guest experience and how we think about spaces and how the design approach to the ships is similar to what we do in the theme parks. And all that goes back to Walt and his original thought about theme parks and Imagineering and creating Imagineering about three-dimensional storytelling. And in the movies, as most of Walt's original Imagineers came from film or animation. Myself, I actually was an animator for many years. And so we were taught about, that establishing shot. That first thing, like in a movie, tells you what the experience is going to be about. It starts giving you cues of what to expect and how to feel. And that's what this atrium does. This atrium is amazing. You walk in, and so, as you can see, the first thing you get is a sense of elegance. You get a sense of the space. This is going to be something big. But then we start using the details to start talking a little bit about the fact that you're on a Disney ship. And that actually, and you'll see as we go through a lot of these pictures, for us, and for myself, one of our challenges is to balance the amount of, I'm going to say Disney whimsy with elegance. We have a very broad audience that we play to. We have families with kids, we have young adults, we have older couples, and we try to create a breadth of experiences and provide a breadth of experiences for all those people. So we have to think about the design in that way too. If everything looked like, I'm trying to think of an extreme example, Toontown, it would, you can only take that in small doses. So you really have to think about how we present the amount of Disney. So in here, that's the picture of the actual finished atrium. The first one was a rendering, of course. You can see we do have this character frieze around each of the levels of the balconies that have Disney characters on them. And then the one big nod to Disney, of course, is our theme character. And there was it. And on the Magic and the Wonder, we had Mickey, of course, on the Magic, Ariel on the Wonder, and it's fun thinking about who the next Disney character should be. And we always try to think timeless characters that are going to be around for a long time. So our Fab Five are usually at the core of that. So we chose Admiral Donald, and then our great Imagineering sculptors, who are fantastic. That's one of the great things about what Bob and I get to do. We get to work with some of the most talented people in the world. Amazing, amazing artists. That's the joy of my job, is to be able to work with smart people like Bob and great sculptors like Irma, who worked on this. And you see the finished product is always something we're very, very proud of.